Happy Halloween, everybody. I'm Bella Deadwood, and this is part 6 of 6 in the 2015 Halloween special. The Halloween-based stories have been a long time coming, so I won't keep you guys from the 5 Halloween stories for you to enjoy today. Note, I am female, and I was probably about 7 years old when this happened. My sister was about 5. One day, sometime in October before Halloween, we were outside playing right by the front porch. My mom makes these awesome homemade ghost decorations to hang in the trees, and as we were big on holidays in my family, the yard was pretty heavily decorated. This man pulls up to our yard, driving really slowly, and comes to a stop right in front of our house. My sister, being the naturally suspicious one, backed up slowly till she was standing on our steps and just kind of watched him warily. I, being the more naive and trusting one, stepped forward to see what he wanted. I looked him over, and as he appeared to be a grandpa, probably in his 70s with white hair and glasses, I judged him to be safe enough. He sat there for a minute as if he were looking over our yard, though, in retrospect, he was probably looking more at us, and he started talking to me. Well, he was speaking fairly quietly, considering I was a good 20 to 30 feet away, so I stepped a little closer. He kept talking, and it seemed like every time I'd get closer, he'd lower his voice, and in turn, I'd scoot closer. This went on until I was about 5 feet from his door. Finally, I could hear what he was saying. He was telling me how spooky our yard looked and what pretty girls we were. At this point, I realized something was off. I still had no idea. And she sprinted inside, screaming for my mom. The minute my mom came out onto the porch, he took off. I didn't realize until that moment that something wasn't right. I'm still super grateful that my sister, at that age, was smarter and more suspicious than I was. Too long didn't read? Creeper tried to lure me into his car when I was 7, and my sister saved me by getting my mom. I have more under my belt, but here's a memory from when I was younger. My dad was the coolest guy on the block, probably because he was one of 3 black dads who lived in our town. The population was around 98% Caucasian, and that's not an exaggeration. He was a state police officer, intimidating, wore Oakleys before the hipsters, and he was generally a rough-sounding person. Damn, do I miss him. But the one thing he feared the most was Halloween. He would tell my sister and I stories at night about his life when he was in high school in slums in New Jersey, and that every Halloween crazy things would happen. He may have been pulling our legs a bit, but we didn't care. When Halloween would roll around, he would take us out while Mom stayed home to trick or treat. One night, in 5th grade, Lexi and I were dressed as a witch and a 50s poodle skirt girl. Dad held our hands, walking to the last street when I realized I'd lost Mom's scarf she'd let me borrow. She loved that thing, so we walked all the way back towards this darker corner of our street. It's by the woods and a small stream, but when it's dark, you can't see anything. Dad said he'd seen something and walked towards it. When he got there, he started slowing down. He was staring at something in the dark that we couldn't see. Lexi called out to him if he found Mom's scarf. He told her to be quiet and started crouching down, looking in the distance. For several moments we stood there, waiting. I could pick out the scarf above his head tied to a branch. He grabbed the scarf, still staring in the dark, and started backing away. Then Dad screamed and sort of shuffled backwards. It was a low, throaty scream, like he was furious, and he was swearing too, but I don't remember what. Whatever Dad had been staring at then bolted out of the trees and ran down the street, opposite of where we lived. It was a little child, probably a boy, in a black costume with skeleton bones on the front and a skull mask. When Lexi and I tried to go over to see what had happened, Dad yelled for us to stay back. He got onto his ancient cell phone and called Mom to come pick us up. His next call was to the local police. We left before we could see anything, but the next day, Mom told us about the dead, skinned animals that had been found. By the time any of us kids could go look, they'd taped off the place and taken out the bloody animals, but there were stains on the pavement, and the smell was pretty bad. The kids talked about it in school a little, and I was curious if they ever caught the boy. Nothing came out in the local papers, though, and it was quickly forgotten. Eventually, Dad could have told me more, but that was the last Halloween we'd ever spend together. But I do remember him and Mom arguing for the next couple of days about ever letting us go trick-or-treating again. This happened about 5 years or so ago, on Halloween, and surprisingly enough, it didn't really have a lot to do with the holiday itself. This particular year, some friends and I were invited to a party, so we planned to go to the city for dinner first, then to the party. I'm not sure where the idea came from, but of the 5 men, 3 decided to dress in drag for our costumes. 2 of us were not pretty at all, and one of us looked like a hot girl. I was one of the ugly ones, though. We took the train to the nearest stop to my friend's party, which we discovered was in a pretty notoriously bad part of town. Needless to say, there was a lot of discomfort while we got awkward stares and a couple of creepy catcalls. We made it no problem and went to the party, which generally sucked. We only wound up staying about 40 minutes before taking off. We were kind of on edge anyways from the whole scenario, but on the way back, we had to walk past an older gentleman and a dog on either side of the sidewalk. He was pretty average, looked like a stock photo you'd use to describe someone's grandfather. He glared at us as we passed, and we avoided eye contact. As I passed, however, the dog jumped back and barked at me. The man yelled, "Hey!" at us loudly, and just kept walking. So, I'm not sure if it was that he thought I kicked the dog, if it had to do with my taste in women's clothing, or something else. But as we walked back to the train, the older gentleman, sans dog, began following us. None of us really noticed it until he overtook 2 of our friends at the back. As we walked, it was a group of 5 of us at the front, with me at the back, and then a good 10 feet between me and the last 2 members of our group. I wasn't aware, but he continued behind me, and slowly started to close the distance between himself and I. By the time we were about a block away from the train station, he was right behind me. At that point, my friend at the back called out to us. "Guys?" She said it with a little panic in her voice. As we turned, the guy stopped suddenly with his arms up, as though he was surprised. He changed direction immediately and walked quickly down a side street. My friend at the back told me that she and her boyfriend in the back were having that horror movie moment when you're so scared that it's hard to speak. She told me that when he passed them, he was focused on me, and once he was right behind me, he matched my pace rather than trying to pass by. She finally called out to us out of terror because he was reaching into his coat pocket. I still shiver thinking about that. This took place in fall of 2008 at the college I used to go to. It was Halloween week, and my friends and I decided to dress up and have a little party with cupcakes and punch on campus. We were all laughing and taking pictures, and I turned around and there was this guy just out of nowhere. I said hi and we made small chat. He turns out to be an okay guy, and a few of my friends said that he was single and that I should see where it goes. He was tall, around 6'2", broad, black hair, and charming. We had a lot in common, so we decided to go to the movies together. but we had to make a stop at his place to pick up some money. We get to his place and ended up drinking, listening to music, and before I knew it, we were having sex. He was attentive, and the sex was rough, and well, it was great. I don't normally sleep well at night, so while he slept, I decided to go on his laptop and check my mail and watch YouTube videos. Not long was I on his laptop when I hear this tingling coming from his window. I couldn't see who it was, considering the blinds, and it being pitch dark in his room. I go over to him, whispering, and tell him there's someone at his window, calling his name. He whispers back he knows, and told me to put the laptop away slowly and lay down until she goes. She kept trying to get into his apartment, but the door was locked. She kept banging on the door, saying, "Where are you?" Eventually, she gave up and went away. The next day, I asked him who that was, and he said it was his girlfriend. I got my stuff and left. He kept saying he would leave her for me, but I didn't want to be with someone like that. So, I thought it was over. But he kept calling me, saying he loved me and he needs me to live. He kept showing up to my classes. I eventually told my guy friends to tell him to leave me alone. He did, and I thought that was the last I would hear of him. He still has friends with some of my friends, which didn't bother me, just as long as he ignores me. 2 of my friends went over to his apartment because he kept leaving suicidal messages on their phone. They told me that they came to a trashed apartment, broken bottles in the bathroom, and blood on the walls with my name and "I love her" written all over his bedroom, drunk. My friends called to tell me this and to please carry protection with me at all times. He tried to come back twice. One incident, he yelled from a bus from the college waiting to leave that I better not block him on Facebook, or else. I found his profile and blocked him immediately. The last time I saw him, he snuck up behind me while I was waiting for the bus downtown. I ran from the bus stop to the nearby coffee shop. That is one creep I never want to see again. The events happened in October 2003. I was 10 years old and in 6th grade. Where I'm from, the middle schools got out after the elementary schools and high schools. My friends and I knew that we would have to leave immediately to start trick-or-treating if we wanted to get any candy. I remember that Halloween of 2003 was on a Friday. This was exciting. We could hit every house we wanted and didn't have to worry about school the next day. After school, our parents picked us up and drove us to our friend's house. Alec lived on a road named South Herald. To the left of South Herald was an identical street named South Concord. At the end of one side of South Herald was a turn that brought you to South Concord. On the other side was the main road. Alec lived closer to the main road, so our plan was to start at his house, go to the main road, then turn up and go down Concord. After that, we'd go back down Herald and return to Alec's house. Let's begin, shall we? Okay, so we began trick-or-treating. There was probably about 12 of us, but the notable ones were myself, Alec, Nate, and James. We had been accruing a great deal of candy when we got to this fateful house. It wasn't unlike any other house, 2 stories, a garage, front lawn, etc. However, there was a Michael Myers statue in the front lawn. We got up to the house, got candy, and then examined the statue. It was holding a knife and was hunched over, and James decided it was a good idea to kick it in the shin. Suddenly, the statue jumped and began holding its shin. We were frightened that the statue was actually a dude. "I'm gonna fucking kill you," said the man. Obviously, plenty of people claim they want to kill someone and not really mean it. We just assumed that it was an idle threat and continued on our way. At like 8:30, it was pretty dark out. I lived up north at the time, and anyone who lives up there can agree that it gets dark pretty quickly. Anyway, we were still collecting candy when Nate and I began discussing the science behind slasher films, like who gets offed first and whatnot. One of the people we were with, who was in the middle of the pack, dropped his bag. We all stopped and waited. Now, the person had to turn around in order to pick up his bag. When he lifted up his head, he began to squint as if trying hard to see something. We turned to see the man in the Michael Myers costume walking behind us. It was odd. No one else was with him. Hell, we were the only group on the road. He was still holding onto that knife. When he noticed we were looking at him, he quickened his pace. Being stupid preteens, we booked it. Looking over my shoulder, I realized he'd start running too. Fortunately for my slow ass, he was a decent length behind us. Our luck even turned more in our favor when a minivan stopped at the end of Concord. It was one of the people I was with's mother. We all piled in and quickly told her someone was chasing us. She drove us back to Alec's house. What makes this even worse is that Alec and Nate told me that the man was still roaming the streets after we had all left. I don't think I really have felt so terrified. I honestly have never left the house on Halloween since. Now, whether or not the knife was real really isn't relevant. It's one of those things I had no intention of knowing, just in case it was real and all. Hey everybody, I'm Bella Deadwood, and thank you for watching this video today. The special has been really quite an experience for myself as well. I have so much more respect for those that upload videos every single day without fail, sometimes even multiple videos a day. With National Novel Writing Month and Christmas coming up, I don't think this is something I can keep up. However, regular Sunday uploads will continue tomorrow. If you're curious about National Novel Writing Month, otherwise known as NaNoWriMo, I'll provide a link to the website below for you to check it out. And if you're doing anything for Halloween, dressing up, trick-or-treating, whatever, let me know in the comments below. I'm going to be working, so I'd like to hear what other people are going to be doing today. Anyway, have a safe night, guys. Happy Halloween, and I'll leave you with your nightmares. Good night.